The Galactic Council had always been fascinated by humans. They watched them closely, curious about their emotions, behavior, and why humans were so different from other species in the galaxy. Despite all their observations, one thing remained a mystery: what made humans truly happy? The Council knew that other species had emotions, but none seemed to express joy the way humans did. It was time to find out. The Council decided to conduct an experiment. They had access to the most advanced technology in the galaxy, so they chose to use it to monitor human children. The plan was simple: install high-tech cameras in schools all over Earth. These cameras would not capture any regular footage, but instead they were designed to detect infrared heat, which revealed how a body emitted warmth. The Council believed that these cameras could give them new insights into how emotions affected human biology. The first day of the experiment began with a lot of excitement among the scientists. The cameras were hidden in the classrooms, the hallways, and even in the playgrounds. They were completely invisible to the children, so the kids didn't know they were being watched. Everything was set. The experiment would run for days, perhaps weeks, depending on what the scientists saw. At first, nothing unusual happened. The cameras recorded the children going about their day as usual. They saw kids sitting at desks, writing, talking to each other, and occasionally looking out the window. Teachers went on with their lessons, unaware of the high-tech surveillance. The scientists on the Galactic Council waited, watching the infrared footage from far away, but they didn't notice anything extraordinary. Days passed, and the team grew restless. The cameras showed nothing more than the usual school activities. The infrared images were nothing special. It seemed like the cameras were simply recording routine school life. Nothing was standing out. However, the Council's lead scientist, Dr. Vekwer, wasn't ready to give up just yet. He was determined to find something that could explain the mystery of human joy. He examined the footage carefully, going over every second, analyzing every moment. That's when he saw it. On the third day, during a break, a group of children had gathered outside in the playground. They were laughing, playing a game, and running around. Dr. Vekwer noticed that the infrared camera began to show an unusual burst of heat around them. He zoomed in on the image. The children weren't just there. Their heat signatures were brighter, more intense. It was as if the warmth in their bodies was radiating out in waves, showing that something extraordinary was happening. Intrigued, Dr. Vekwer went over the footage from other schools. He was stunned to see the same pattern everywhere. The children's infrared heat signatures only became stronger when they were smiling, laughing, or engaged in something fun. The cameras were only able to pick up the children when they were happy. When they were upset, angry, or simply going through the motions of a normal day, they appeared dull and cold, almost invisible to the cameras. Dr. Vekwer quickly reported his findings to the Galactic Council. "This is remarkable," he said. "The children's presence on the cameras seems to be tied directly to their emotional state. When they feel joy, when they're happy, their body radiates heat in a way we've never seen before." The Council was in shock. They had expected to learn more about human emotions, but what they had uncovered was far beyond what they imagined. It wasn't just about how humans expressed happiness. It was about how happiness seemed to literally make them glow. The idea that a human emotion could have such a physical effect on the body was unheard of. No other species in the galaxy showed such a connection between their inner feelings and their external form. Dr. Vekwer and his team began to dig deeper. They analyzed more footage, going over the records for hours. They started to notice patterns. The children who seemed happiest were the ones who spent time helping others, playing with friends, or working on creative activities. There was a distinct link between positive emotions and an increase in infrared heat. It was fascinating. The Council had already known that humans were a species of intense emotions, but now they had proof that their joy was something special. It wasn't just about having fun or being in a good mood. Joy, in its purest form, had a unique physical presence. It was as though happiness itself powered their bodies in a way that no other emotion could. As the experiment continued, The council realized they needed to explore this further. There was still so much to learn. Why did happiness make humans radiate warmth? Could this phenomenon be used to unlock more about the human mind and body? The possibilities were endless, but for now, the Galactic Council had only scratched the surface of something much deeper. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the children continued to live their lives, unaware that their emotions were being studied. They laughed, played, and smiled, not knowing that their simple acts of joy were being watched and recorded by alien scientists from across the galaxy. Little did they know, the truth of their emotions would soon become a story that would change the way the universe viewed humanity forever. And so, the experiment continued, and the Council eagerly waited for the next discovery, knowing that they were on the verge of uncovering something monumental about the human race. But one thing was certain: humans were more than just a species of warriors or explorers. They were beings whose happiness could light up the stars themselves. The Galactic Council was stunned by the results of the experiment. The children of Earth were not just ordinary beings. Their emotions had a physical effect on their bodies that no one had expected. The infrared cameras, designed to pick up only heat, revealed something that could change everything. Happiness wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was a powerful force, a force that made human children glow with warmth when they felt joy. The Council had originally installed the cameras to learn more about the way humans interacted with each other. They wanted to see how these emotional creatures functioned in their daily lives. What they hadn't expected was to discover that happiness had such a strong impact on their biology. The way humans expressed joy seemed to be linked to something deep within them, something much greater than simple emotional expression. Dr. Vekor, the lead scientist, couldn't stop thinking about the implications. He had studied many species throughout his career, but none had ever shown such an obvious connection between emotion and physical response. In his many years of research, he had never seen anything like it. The way the children reacted to their surroundings was unlike anything observed in other species. He pored over the footage again, analyzing every second. The smiles, the laughter, the playful energy, all of these moments triggered bursts of warmth. It was almost as if happiness itself was creating a kind of energy in their bodies. But the most curious thing was that when the children stopped smiling or became upset, the infrared cameras no longer detected them. It was as though the warmth inside them vanished. The more Dr. Vekor thought about it, the more he realized that these children were not simply emitting heat. The warmth they radiated was not just a byproduct of their emotions, it was something more. It was as if happiness had become a kind of fuel for their bodies. And this power, this force, was what made them so different from every other species the Council had encountered. As the days passed, Dr. Vekor and his team continued to analyze the footage, trying to understand what made happiness so special for humans. They discovered that when children interacted with others in positive ways, such as helping a friend or making someone laugh, their heat signatures became even stronger. It was as if kindness and compassion also amplified the emotional warmth they radiated. The Council couldn't help but wonder, if happiness could produce such intense heat, could it also have other effects? Could it be harnessed for something greater? They had long known that energy sources were one of the most valuable assets in the galaxy. Could human happiness, something so simple, be the key to a new kind of power? But it wasn't just about energy. Dr. Vekor began to see that the true power of humans wasn't in their ability to generate warmth. It was in how they used that warmth. The children weren't just reacting to their environment. They were shaping it. Their happiness brought light and energy into the world around them, something that no other species had ever done before. They didn't just passively experience joy. They actively created it, spreading their warmth to everyone they met. The more the Council observed, the more they realized that humans were far more than just a species of emotion-driven beings. Their capacity for happiness was an expression of something deeper, a deeper connection to each other and the universe around them. It was as if their joy had the power to bind them together, to make them stronger, to make them more than the sum of their parts. One day, Dr. Vekor made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the team. As they analyzed more footage, they noticed something incredible. The children who were happiest weren't just playing or having fun. They were also the ones who were learning, growing, and creating. Their joy came from more than just entertainment. It came from their ability to explore the world, to challenge themselves, and to push the limits of their potential. The more they discovered, the more their warmth grew. They were not just absorbing knowledge. They were radiating it, using it to fuel their very beings. The council was now convinced that human happiness was a force unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't just an emotion, it was an energy, a power that could change the galaxy. They began to wonder what would happen if they could tap into this force. What if human joy could be harnessed for something beyond simple emotional well-being? Could it power entire fleets of ships or create new technologies that could revolutionize the galaxy? But before they could explore this idea further, the council faced another dilemma. The footage they had been collecting was starting to raise questions back on Earth. The humans had no idea that they were being observed, that they were beginning to notice strange phenomena in their schools. Children were talking about seeing strange lights and feeling unusual sensations when they were happy. Some even claimed to feel as though they were glowing from the inside. The council realized that they needed to move quickly. If humans were beginning to notice the effects of their happiness, it wouldn't be long before they started to connect the dots. The Galactic Council couldn't afford for the humans to discover what they had been doing. The experiment had to continue, but the risks were growing with each passing day. As Dr. Vekor and his team prepared for the next phase of their investigation, they knew that the fate of their mission depended on one thing: keeping the secret of human happiness hidden. They couldn't let Earth know the truth about the power that lived within their children's hearts. Not yet. For now, the experiment continued, and the council watched in awe as the human children continued to shine with a warmth that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the power of happiness was something the galaxy was about to learn a lot more about. The Galactic Council's experiment had reached a critical point. While Dr. Vekor and his team were still analyzing the data on Earth's children, something unexpected began to happen. The children, who once remained blissfully unaware of the strange cameras in their schools, started to notice the odd patterns in their emotions. It was subtle at first, whispers in the hallways about the strange lights and sensations that some students felt when they were happy, but it quickly grew. More and more children reported strange occurrences, their energy growing when they were in positive environments or when they laughed and played together. It wasn't long before the rumors spread among the teachers as well. Back on Earth, the leaders of the human governments were becoming suspicious. They knew something was happening with their children, but they had no idea what. The rise in reports about unusual occurrences in classrooms and playgrounds led to frantic discussions. Could it be a new scientific phenomenon? Had they unlocked some form of energy that no one had ever seen before? Or was it something more sinister? The Galactic Council knew they had to act fast. The humans' growing awareness could ruin everything they had worked for. Earth's leaders were powerful and resourceful. If they figured out that they were being observed by alien forces, the situation could escalate into something far worse than they had imagined. Dr. Vekor was particularly concerned. He had seen the immense power of human emotions firsthand, and he knew that this newfound awareness could lead to unpredictable consequences. The last thing he wanted was for Earth to push back against the experiment, or worse, make contact with the very species that had been monitoring them. He feared the humans would retaliate, armed with a force that was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first sign of trouble came when an Earth scientist, Dr. Marissa Kane, began to investigate the unusual phenomena that had been happening in her classroom. She was a renowned researcher who specialized in neurobiology and emotional responses, and she quickly caught on to the patterns. When she started linking the strange behavior of the students with bursts of warmth that appeared on infrared cameras, she was able to make a breakthrough. It didn't take long for her to confirm her suspicions. The children were emitting heat that corresponded with their happiness, But what really caught her attention was the potential for this warmth to be harnessed. Dr. Kane wasn't a stranger to breakthroughs in science. In her career, she had worked on projects that harnessed the power of the human brain. But this was something different. This wasn't just about electricity or bioenergy. It was about pure emotion, and the potential to use it in ways that were beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Dr. Kane started to dig deeper into the phenomenon. She created a series of experiments, mirroring the ones Dr. Vecker's team had conducted. But this time, she was doing it in secret. She didn't trust the governments or the school systems with her findings yet. There was too much at stake. She kept her work hidden, gathering more and more data as she watched the children, seeing how their emotions could be tied to these strange bursts of energy. But the more she learned, the more she realized the truth. The human race was on the verge of discovering something that could change everything. If they could tap into the emotional warmth that the children were generating, they could fuel new technologies, power entire cities, and even explore the stars. It was the kind of energy that could revolutionize the entire planet, and possibly the galaxy. The possibilities were endless. As Dr. Kane's discoveries began to spiral out of control, she started to suspect that someone, or something, was watching them. She had noticed strange signals on her equipment that seemed to originate from deep space, but there were no known sources of communication. At first, she thought it was just an anomaly, but as the signals continued, she grew more certain that they were being observed. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was beginning to feel the pressure of the growing suspicion on Earth. Their surveillance was no longer as discreet as it once was. Dr. Vecker had tried to keep everything under wraps, but it seemed the humans were getting closer to the truth. The cameras they had installed were still functioning, but now, every day that passed made them more vulnerable to discovery. The children's emotions, the very thing the Council had been studying, were now threatening to expose their presence. Dr. Vecker and his team had underestimated the power of human curiosity. They never thought the humans would figure it out so soon. The question now was whether they could stop the humans from discovering the full extent of the experiment, or if it was already too late. As Earth's leaders scrambled to figure out what was happening, tensions between the nations began to rise. Some factions wanted to keep the discovery of the energy a secret, believing it could be a weapon. Others pushed for a global effort to study the phenomenon openly, arguing that it could be the key to saving their planet from future crises. But the one thing that was clear was that the human race was on the brink of something monumental. The Galactic Council was now in a race against time. The more the humans learned, the more the experiment could be compromised. If they were discovered, Earth might not just demand answers. They might demand a war. Dr. Vecker stood in front of the Council, knowing that they had little time left. The fate of the experiment, and the future of human happiness, was now in the hands of the children who had no idea they were part of something far bigger than themselves. Would they continue to shine their light, or would the growing tensions on Earth lead to something darker? The Galactic Council could only watch and wait, knowing that they had opened a door they might never be able to close. As the days passed, Earth's growing awareness of the strange energy they were uncovering only deepened. Dr. Marissa Kane's secret research on the emotional power of children had reached a point where she could no longer keep her findings to herself. The patterns were undeniable. The warmth the children emitted, tied to their happiness, was far more than a simple anomaly. Dr. Kane had found a way to predict these bursts, and her work hinted at the possibility of tapping into this energy to change the very foundation of human society. However, with each discovery, Dr. Kane grew more cautious. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. Her experiments, once quiet and contained, were now being observed by invisible eyes, and she knew the implications of her research could have far-reaching consequences. She had inadvertently stumbled upon the key to unlocking a new form of energy, one that could rival anything the galaxy had ever seen. But how long before others, perhaps the mysterious forces observing them, would come forward to claim it for themselves? Her fears intensified when she began to notice subtle signs of interference. Her lab's sensors, once reliable, began to malfunction. Her communications equipment sometimes picked up strange signals, faint echoes that couldn't be traced to any known source. Something was out there, and it wasn't friendly. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, Dr. Kane couldn't stop her work. She had always believed that science should be used to help humanity, to push the boundaries of what they thought was possible. But she wasn't prepared for the kind of power she had unlocked. At the same time, the world's political leaders began to scramble to take control of this newfound knowledge. Some governments saw the potential to weaponize the energy, turning the children's happiness into a tool for domination. Others feared that if the truth were to come out, it could spark chaos and destabilize the global order. The race to control the energy had begun, and it wasn't just a matter of politics anymore. It was a race for survival. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched with growing concern. Dr. Vekur, the lead scientist of the Council's monitoring team, had never anticipated that things would escalate so quickly. The humans, who were supposed to be unaware of the experiment, had become keenly aware of the strange forces at play around them. Worse still, they had begun to question whether their own children were merely subjects in a distant alien experiment. The secrecy they had worked so hard to maintain was slipping through their fingers. In the control room aboard the Galactic Council's flagship, Dr. Vekur stood, staring at the holographic screens that displayed Earth's data. His team had worked tirelessly to ensure that the humans would never detect their presence, but now it seemed like their time was running out. The human curiosity was insatiable, and they had already begun to ask the kinds of questions that couldn't be easily answered. The more they learned, the closer they came to discovering the true nature of the experiment. Dr. Vekur knew that the next step was critical. The humans had to be kept in the dark, or else they might rebel. But how could they control a species so unpredictable, one that had the potential to harness a power beyond their comprehension? It was a question that haunted him. They had underestimated Earth's intelligence and resilience. They had thought they could observe quietly from afar, but now the balance had shifted. The experiment was no longer something they could control. Back on Earth, governments around the world were beginning to form alliances, each one trying to harness the new energy for their own purposes. The children, oblivious to the chaos their emotions were creating, continued to live their lives, each of them unknowingly carrying the key to humanity's future. The pressure was mounting, and the world was teetering on the edge of chaos. One faction, the United Earth Coalition, argued that humanity should share the knowledge openly, offering it to the world in an effort to unite under a single banner. They saw the power of the energy as a way to create a new era of peace and prosperity. But others, like the Global Military Command, saw only one option: control. They wanted to weaponize the energy, using it to ensure Earth's dominance over the galaxy. With both sides growing more entrenched in their views, the human race found itself on the brink of civil war. What began as a discovery of a new form of energy was now a fight for the future of humanity. But what neither side realized was that their squabbles over control were already being washed by those far beyond their understanding. The Galactic Council, ever vigilant, began to prepare for the worst. They had underestimated the power of human emotion and the strength of the Earth's will. They knew the humans could not be trusted with such power, but they were uncertain how to proceed. Would they have to take action? Would they have to reveal themselves to Earth? If the humans discovered their true role in the experiment, the consequences could be catastrophic. In the midst of this tension, Dr. Vekur found himself questioning everything. Had the Council been right to conduct this experiment? Had they underestimated the humans? It was clear now that Earth had the potential to surpass even the most advanced species in the galaxy. What had started as a study of human emotions had evolved into something far more dangerous and far more powerful. The balance of power was shifting, and no one knew how the story would end. What was certain was that the Galactic Council's experiment had pushed the human race to the brink. The question was no longer whether they could harness the power of their emotions. The question was whether they would ever allow anyone, alien or human, to control them. As the world teetered on the brink of collapse, the children of Earth unknowingly held the key to its future. Dr. Kane's research had not only revealed the incredible potential of the energy that the children could generate, but had also unlocked something far more significant: a latent, untapped force within humanity that could alter the fate of the galaxy. But as political tensions skyrocketed, Dr. Kane's work became more than just a scientific pursuit. It became a symbol of defiance. The governments of Earth, split between those who wanted to control the energy and those who wished to share it with the world, began to mobilize their forces. The military factions, emboldened by their new understanding of the power the children could generate, began creating covert operations to harness this energy. They developed advanced technologies to tap into the happiness of children, using their emotions as a form of weaponized energy. But as Earth's leaders fought for control, something unexpected began to unfold in the background. An uprising, led by a group of teenagers and children who had learned the true nature of the experiment. These young minds, now aware that their emotions were being manipulated, found solidarity with one another. They had begun to understand the immense power they carried, and for the first time in their lives, they realized they weren't just victims of an experiment. They were the true architects of Earth's future. Led by a brilliant 16-year-old hacker named Ava, this group of rebellious children had infiltrated government systems, exposing the truth about the experiment to the public. Ava, who had been a target of the government's energy projects due to her heightened emotional sensitivity, became the leader of this new movement. She communicated with other children and teenagers across the globe, spreading the truth and organizing protests, calling for the end of the military's control over their emotions. The revolution was no longer just a whisper in the shadows. It was a full-scale rebellion, with children taking to the streets, demanding to be recognized as the true masters of their own fate. The adults had always thought of the children as powerless, but now it was the children who held the ultimate power. Ava's group, using encrypted messages and clandestine broadcasts, exposed the world's governments for their exploitation of young minds. As the rebellion grew stronger, so did the government's fear. The once untouchable authorities now faced a growing wave of resistance that they could not control. For the first time, the children were the ones who held the upper hand. And the leaders of Earth, terrified of the consequences of the energy's true power, began to scramble. Yet, in the shadows, the Galactic Council watched with mounting alarm. They had hoped that by monitoring Earth's experiments, they could control the situation. What they hadn't expected was the sheer force of will the human children displayed. The rebellion was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. These young humans were unpredictable, uncontainable, and more dangerous than any alien species they had ever encountered. The energy they produced wasn't just powerful, it was chaotic, a wild force that could disrupt the very fabric of the universe if left unchecked. Dr. Vekur, the head of the Council's secretive monitoring team, was the first to recognize the true scope of the situation. The humans had gained control of the one thing the Council had never anticipated: the power to resist. The experiment, once seen as a method to study human emotions and their potential, had transformed into a struggle for survival, a battle not just for the future of Earth, but for the balance of power in the galaxy. Realizing the danger that the human rebellion posed, the Galactic Council convened a secret meeting. The leaders of the galaxy discussed their options. Should they reveal themselves to humanity and attempt to regain control, or would they allow the humans to evolve into a power capable of threatening the very foundation of the galaxy? Dr. Vekur, now fully aware of the depth of human resilience, stood at the forefront of the debate. He was conflicted. He had always believed in the superiority of the galactic species, but now, faced with the reality of human determination and ingenuity, he wasn't sure anymore. The humans, with their unpredictable emotions and wild potential, might be the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. On Earth, the situation grew more intense. The young rebels, once scattered and disorganized, now coordinated with precision. Ava's leadership had turned a ragtag group of teenagers into a formidable force. They hacked into government systems, broadcasted their messages to the masses, and used their understanding of the energy to disrupt military operations. They were no longer just children. They were warriors in a war for the future. Despite the growing violence and unrest, there was a flicker of hope. The rebellion was not just a fight for control of the energy, it was a fight for freedom. The children had realized that they were not tools to be used, nor subjects of an experiment. They were people with their own will, and they were willing to fight for it. As Ava stood on the steps of a major government building, speaking to a crowd of thousands, she said, "We are the future. We are not your weapons, and we will not be controlled. We will fight for our right to live free, and no one will take that away from us." The crowd erupted into cheers, and across the globe, the rebellion grew stronger. The Galactic Council, watching from afar, had underestimated humanity once again. The children of Earth, once seen as nothing more than pawns, were now the ones in control, and they were not going to let anyone take that power away. The universe had underestimated them. Now, the galaxy would have to face the consequences. The rebellion on Earth continued to grow, spreading like wildfire. The children, once overlooked and underestimated, were now the driving force of a movement that threatened to shake the entire galaxy. Ava and her group had become legends, symbols of resistance, and their influence was spreading far beyond the borders of Earth. The Galactic Council, now fully aware of the power humanity possessed, was scrambling to formulate a response. As the Council convened in their grand chamber, a dark silence hung in the air. Representatives from every species, from the insect-like Thraxians to the towering ancient Saurians, sat uneasily. They had always seen Earth as a primitive planet, its inhabitants weak and divided, unworthy of serious attention. But the events unfolding on Earth were forcing them to confront the truth. Humanity was not what they had thought. Dr. Vekor, the head of the Galactic Council's Intelligence Division, was the first to speak. "We've underestimated them," he said, his voice cold but laced with a hint of admiration. "The humans have created something we did not foresee. Their children are using the very energy we sought to control, and they've turned it into a weapon of rebellion. We must act." The other members of the Council exchanged uneasy glances. They had long seen themselves as the ultimate authority in the galaxy, capable of controlling entire civilizations with a flick of a finger. But humanity had shown them a new form of power, something chaotic, untamed, and impossible to predict. The children's ability to manipulate energy through their emotions had become a force greater than anyone had anticipated. "We cannot allow this to continue," said Queen Smera of the Dracarians, her voice deep and resonant. "If we do not intervene, these humans may become a threat to us all. We must reassert control over Earth before they become a danger to the entire galaxy." "But how?" interjected an elder representative from the Siltheri species, their minds famous for their precision and logic. "The humans are no longer just a primitive species. They have discovered the power of their emotions, and in doing so, they have become unpredictable. If we try to intervene too harshly, we risk sparking an all-out war." The Council fell into a deep silence, each leader lost in thought. They had underestimated humanity for centuries, and now they were paying the price. The rebellion on Earth had grown beyond their control, and there was no easy solution. Any attempt to strike down the children of Earth could spark a much larger conflict, one that could lead to the destruction of entire galactic systems. Dr. Vekor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with a calculating gleam. "We cannot let Earth remain free, but we must approach this delicately. If we are too aggressive, we will turn their rebellion into a full-scale war. We must find a way to manipulate the situation, to bend Earth to our will without drawing too much attention." The silence in the chamber deepened as the Council considered Vekor's words. Finally, the Saurian representative, Githarn, spoke up. "Perhaps we don't need to destroy them, but rather break their will. If we disrupt their sense of unity, we can fracture their rebellion. We know they are a young species, full of emotion and impulsive decisions. If we target their leadership, the children who have risen to power, we can undermine their entire movement." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. They had no intention of wiping out humanity, but they knew that the rebellion, as it stood, could not be allowed to continue unchecked. If they could remove Ava and her group from power, if they could fracture the human resistance, they might still be able to maintain their hold on Earth without an all-out war. "We send in covered agents," Vekor suggested, "agents who can infiltrate Earth's communication networks, sowing discord and mistrust among the human rebels. We strike at the heart of their leadership, targeting those who have organized the resistance. Without their unifying force, the rebellion will crumble." The council agreed. The plan was set into motion, and within days, a fleet of stealth ships was dispatched to Earth. The galaxy's most skilled infiltrators, trained to blend seamlessly into human society, were sent to carry out the mission. Their objective: to destabilize the rebellion from within, to turn the children against each other, and to break their resolve. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ava and her group were preparing for the next phase of the revolution. They had already taken control of several key government facilities, and their broadcasts were reaching millions of people. The children's energy, once seen as a tool of control, had become a symbol of hope. The rebellion was now a global movement, and Earth's leaders had no choice but to respond with force. Ava had become a symbol of resistance, the face of a new era for humanity. She had seen the true potential of the children's energy, and knew that the only way to secure their freedom was to fight for it. She spoke to her followers, her voice full of conviction. "We are not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every child on this planet. We will not let anyone take our power away." But Ava had no idea that the Galactic Council was watching. The covered agents had already begun their work, and slowly, tensions were rising within the rebellion. Ava's closest allies were beginning to question her decisions, and whispers of doubt were spreading among the ranks. The Council's plan was beginning to take root. The children of Earth were stronger than ever, but they were also vulnerable to the same emotions they had learned to harness. And the Galactic Council was about to exploit that vulnerability, starting the next phase of their intervention. What they didn't realize, however, was that the true power of humanity was not in the energy they could create, but in the unbreakable bond they shared with each other. And that, in the end, would be what stopped the Council. As the Galactic Council's covered agents infiltrated Earth's communication networks, the once united rebellion began to show cracks. Ava, who had stood as the beacon of hope for the children and the driving force behind the resistance, felt a growing sense of unease. She couldn't explain it, but something was wrong. The mood within the rebellion was shifting. Allies she had once trusted seemed distant, questioning her decisions, and even the energy that had once felt so powerful now seemed to pulse erratically. The galactic agents, hidden in plain sight, were working tirelessly to sow seeds of doubt among the children. They whispered in the right ears, planting rumors and false information, spreading misinformation about Ava's leadership. They targeted the most loyal members, convincing them that Ava had become a tyrant in the making, someone who would stop at nothing to control Earth for herself. The result was a fragmented rebellion, with factions forming, each claiming a different vision for Earth's future. But Ava had been trained to lead under pressure. She knew that the greatest weapon they possessed wasn't just the raw energy the children controlled, it was their unity. She understood that a divided resistance would fall. And so, despite the internal unrest, she began to take action. The first step was to expose the infiltration. Ava called a gathering of her most trusted lieutenants, the ones who had been with her from the beginning. She stood before them, a fierce determination in her eyes. "We've been infiltrated," she announced, her voice steady, but filled with an urgency that sent a shiver through the room. "The Galactic Council has sent spies to divide us. They want us to fall apart. They want us to turn on each other." The room fell silent as her words sank in. There were no immediate reactions, only the weight of what she had just revealed. But Ava knew the truth had a way of cutting through deception. The lieutenants exchanged glances, and slowly they began to speak up. One by one, they voiced their concerns, their doubts, their suspicions. It became clear to them that the agents had planted the seeds of discord, playing on their insecurities and fears. With the truth revealed, the rebellion rallied. Ava's call for unity was stronger than ever. The children, once again standing together, combined their energies and began to push back against the agent's influence. The cracks that had started to form slowly healed, and the rebellion found its strength once more. But the Galactic Council wasn't ready to give up just yet. As the resistance regrouped and began to regain control, the Council launched a new wave of attacks. Their ships, once silent in the shadows, now descended on Earth in full force, ready to crush any remaining hope. Ava and her group knew this would be their final stand. The rebellion, though divided at times, had proven its resilience. The children had proven that, when united, they were more than just a force to be reckoned with. They were a force of nature. In the face of the Council's might, Ava stood tall. "We will fight until the last breath," she declared, her voice echoing in the hearts of every child who had joined the cause. "We will not let them take our future. We will not let them take our freedom. This is our home, and we will protect it at any cost." The children rallied around Ava, their energies crackling with a fierce determination. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for everything they had ever known. The battle for Earth had begun, and the fate of the galaxy would be decided by the actions of a few brave souls who had stood up to an empire that thought they could never be defeated. As the final battle loomed, Ava felt a surge of power unlike any she had ever experienced. The bond between the children had been strengthened, and they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake in underestimating them, and now they would pay the price. In the end, it wasn't the Galactic Council's superior technology, their armies, or their manipulation that would win the war. It was the will of the children, the unbreakable bond they shared, and the fierce desire to protect their world, their home. The Galactic Council may have controlled the galaxy for centuries, but it was Earth's children who would change the course of history forever.